This is Autism 101, Beyond the Spectrum with Rhonda Spellman. Today I'm going to talk about the beginning of autism. Tanner? 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 I would snap my fingers, I'd wave my hands, I'd get right in my son's face. Over and over, I would call his name. But he didn't seem to hear me. He didn't seem to recognize me. He didn't seem to be there. Was he ignoring me? Was it purely something that was coincidence? Could he be distracted? I really didn't know. I wanted to deny, and I was in denial. When my son was 18 months old, I struggled to keep up with him. He was like an average 18-year-old boy running after everything, and I was often running right behind him. When he was 28 months old, I was struggling to keep up with his digression. Was it the fact that he had a new 4-month-old little brother? Or was it something else? I struggled and I struggled to try and figure out why my son was no longer my son. Those magical days when his eyes would connect with mine were gone. Today, those days, I could not grasp his eyes for more than brief moments. It was as if it was painful to him. His focus was not there. Instead of his eyes connecting with me, those beautiful little blue eyes would roll back in his head. And for a mother, it was traumatic. It was very traumatic for me. And I was a new mother. I had 2 babies. Would you like a banana? I asked my son. And he looked at me with a very vague, lost look. He drifted off into space, and he came back to me, the blue dinosaur. He would answer me, and I would fight the tears that welled up inside. He didn't understand banana anymore. What had happened to my son? Where did he go? This little child in front of me was looking just like my son, but he wasn't my son anymore, and I didn't know what to do. I began to go to doctors. I began to ask questions that no one had answers for. Why had my son turned an about face and why had he become someone I no longer knew? 18 doctors gave me vague answers. 18 doctors gave me answers I couldn't understand and couldn't accept. I began to search for on my own and for myself. I searched back and tried to target that date when my son began to metamorphose into a different child. I landed on the day when he received his MMR vaccination. The mumps, measles, rubella vaccination is a combination of 3 live viruses. 3 live viruses that most children can assimilate, can process, and can live through. My son could not. Why? My son had also reacted to 3 vaccinations prior to the MMR. I later discovered that those 3 vaccinations he had reacted to, with large swellings and high temperatures, all 3 contained mercury. I believe that the mercury from those 3 previous shots were the cup being filled. And when he received that MMR, that cup overflew. That overflowing of that cup resulted in my son having a temperature of 105 degrees 2 hours after his MMR. That day was the day that my son began a downward spiral. From that day, I began to try and fight what was going on. I wanted to rescue my son. I wanted to bring my son back, and I was willing to do anything to bring him back. What we did from that day on is the story that I now share. It is from suspicion to success that I give you my story. My son was diagnosed with autism right before he was 4 years old. Today, my son is 10. My son has written 4 books. He's writing his first screenplay. He's a magical, wonderful, adorable child. Are we focusing on what happened, or are we focusing on what we're doing about it? We are moving forward, and I hope that you will too. Please join me as I begin to share what we did on our journey, on the journey home from autism. And please stop by and see me on my website, autismwithrhonda.com. Thank you for being with me today.